My name is William Bear. I was born on 1924. I'll be 100 years old this November. I was born in Covington, Kentucky, which is across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. Later on, my parents moved out on a suburb of Covington, which is very close to Cincinnati. And they had 4 children. I had a very modest home. It was nice. And this was during the Depression, of course. They had to tighten our belts. And I remember people coming around, hobos, and asking for food. And my parents would give them whatever they could. My dad was a manager of a shoe store. And we didn't have a car, strangely enough. And our home was 1 block from the church, 1 block from the streetcar line, and he could take a streetcar down to Covington where he managed that store. And he just could take a streetcar down within a block of that store, so for his job, he didn't have to have a car. I went to a parochial school. I'm Catholic.
What did your mother do? Did she stay home with the kids?
Yeah, she worked on the weekends down at the shoe store. But other than that, she was always home. We didn't have much. I guess we were poor, but we didn't know it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my clothes came from my cousins, and he built a new home, but it wasn't big. 2 bedrooms. We had 4 kids, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. We happened to live next door to an Italian family. Of course, they had spaghetti all the time. We're German. We had sauerkraut now and then. They loved sauerkraut. We loved spaghetti, so we exchanged dishes. We played baseball in the back of our house. There was an empty lot. We played baseball there.
With a lot of the kids from the nearby houses?
Neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, in those days, you could ride a bike anywhere. You could go anywhere. It was safe. We had a little theater up on the corner, real small. And I'd go up there, and I could just go up there myself while I was almost in grade school. In high school, of course, we'd go up and play pool in one of the pool halls. I was a high school kid, you know.
Mm-hmm. But you really didn't just sit at your house much, did you?
Oh, no, hell, you didn't sit in the house. You're always outside. In the winter, you had a sled, the snow, you know.
Did you have any sisters?
There was 4 in my family. I had 2 sisters and a brother. I was the oldest.
Were the sisters out there playing ball with y'all?
No, they didn't play ball then. Girls didn't play baseball.
What did they do while y'all were out?
I don't know. Frankly, I don't know what the hell they did.
They sat at home a lot more than y'all did?
Yeah, I guess they were with their girlfriends. I don't know what they did.
Did you enjoy school?
Yeah. Yeah, I had fun. I enjoyed it. Flunked the 1st grade. Not believe that. Well, I had scarlet fever, my mother said. She held me back after the 1st year, and I got all A's all the way through grade school. On the high school, I made the 1st team of the basketball. We have a very small high school. We played some of the better schools, but we didn't have a very good team. There was only 35 in my graduating class as a senior. So you can imagine how many guys. Half of them are women. A lot of them were some of them had paper routes, so it was fairly easy to make the team, but I made the team and played for a couple of years in the varsity team. My high school was about 2 miles from home. We were in a small high school. I remember in the senior class, I said there was 35, there was 1 boy in the whole class that came to school with a car. 1 in the whole high school. Well, you pass these high schools now, they got beautiful cars, you know, brand new.
Yeah.
But that's the way things were. I got used to some records and the big bands. I love the big bands. Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, all them. Oh man, they have, of course they have entertainment here. A lot of the people are in their 80s, you know, here. And they remember the big bands, but they're not as important to them as they are to me. You know, they've kind of gone with the country western, and where I grew up, and when I was a kid, no one liked country western. There were people from down in Kentucky. They called them hillbillies, and on the jukebox, they'd play this hillbilly music, which today you'd call it country western. Well, that was a no-no then. Nobody wanted to be a hillbilly. It was all big bands. I had, like I say, I had a record player.
And where'd you get your records?
I bought them over in Cincinnati usually. I had part-time jobs.
So at a record store?
Yeah, a record store. I started out with the 33, the big records, and then switched to the 45s.
Would they let you listen to it so you could tell if you wanted it?
Yeah, we listened to them before we bought them.
So you would just bring them home and play them?
Oh yeah, my parents, and some of the loud ones, they get a little perturbed at times.
Did y'all have dance parties or anything like that at a house?
Not at the house, no.
Where would y'all get together to dance?
Well, at the prom they had it in the gym, but I didn't know how to dance anyway. You know, I couldn't dance. I got a date for the prom, but I guess I danced at that thing.
Were some of your friends able to?
Some of them, yeah. I was going with a girl. She was real good at it, and we never did go to dances that much. She didn't teach me, and I didn't want to learn at the time, I guess.
How often would you go on dates?
Not very often at all, because I didn't have a car. My buddy next door had access to a car, and his dad, they sold fruit and vegetables, and he had stamps to get gasoline. So they had a pretty nice car. We'd get a date that way. We'd go down to Covington, and there was I guess an ice cream store. I forget the name of it. We'd go down there, and there'd always be some girls there. And we met some, and I met a gal that I started going with her.
So the girls would just sit there at the soda shop?
Yeah.
And what would y'all do? You just walk up to them?
Well, eventually, yes. You get to know them. Then we had there was a bar with a garden in the back, right where I lived, and where, they had beer out there and everything. And we go there, and women come. It was the end of the streetcar line as far as the car ran. And sometimes women would come out there and go back in the gardens and drink, and we'd meet a few of them there.
Back then you needed a car if you wanted to go out on a date.
Well, yeah, pretty much, although there were streetcars. Girls
your age back then, were they smoking?
I would guess many of them were, yeah. Yeah, almost everybody, all my buddies smoked. Never did smoke. Never tried it. All my buddies smoked. Everybody smoked in high school. They did in those days, It was the thing to do. I tried them, didn't like it. Yeah, I was sitting on a bus in downtown Cincinnati. I worked for Western Union, and it was a Sunday, and I worked weekends. I was going to high school as a Western Union boy. You ever remember them? Or
was that who would deliver a telegram?
Yeah, we delivered telegrams. Well, I had my bike stolen, so they'd give me pass on a bus to take telegrams out. And I remember that Sunday I was sitting on a bus in downtown Cincinnati, and I heard about Pearl Harbor. You always remember where you were. And that's where I was.
You heard about it on a radio?
No, I didn't have a radio. Somebody yelled it out. Of course, that was such big news. That's all everybody talked about. Special editions. When I was a kid, they had special editions of the newspaper.
Right.
Even in our neighborhood, which is way out in the suburbs, kids would be going down the street with newspapers, special edition. In those days, as a kid, 17 years old, I didn't have the information I have now about politics or business or economics. Of course, I knew that the war was going on in Europe, and we heard about all the action going on, and that the U.S. eventually was going, we thought. it seems like I guess it had to come. You know, they were going to get into the war one way or the other, so it just happened this way.
So you were worried?
I wasn't worried. No, I thought, well, it looks like I'm going to be in the service. I, in a way, I wanted to get in the Air Force, looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it's the best thing ever happened to me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Western Union?
Well,
What kind of a job was that, and
well,
how was it?
I started out. I had a bicycle, and our home was 6 miles from downtown Cincinnati. So I rode on the freeways. These are freeways. Of course, the freeways weren't as busy as they are now. But I rode that bike for 6 miles into Western Union office where I started working. But I'd deliver a lot of them on foot in downtown Cincinnati. That's where most of the commerce was, in the big buildings in Cincinnati.
So would they just give you a stack of telegrams and you'd go do them one
It
by
wouldn't be
one?
a very big stack. It might be just 2 or 3. And you know where all the office buildings were concentrated, right downtown Cincinnati. And occasionally one was further out. I know on Sundays already, I would go in and they give me a telegram to West End of Cincinnati, which is all black. In those days, I had no fear at all. And it was safe. I rode my bike right into the heart of the black people, go upstairs, smell the cabbies boiling and everything. It was safe, but nowadays, or before I left Cincinnati, much years later, nobody go down and do that.
Well, most of your telegrams ended up being business related, not really to houses or anything.
Well, yeah, in the downtown Cincinnati, they were business, but you go out in the suburbs, there was people said different kinds, you know, birthdays and things like that. They saw my birth certificate, it's November, but they read it as May. So they thought I was 16 years old in May. So I started work early. They started me out delivering handbills. Mm-hmm. I didn't deliver telegrams. The first summer I delivered these handbills, you know, you put it on the door, I got 25 cents an hour. And then when I started delivering telegrams, it was 30 cents.
Uh-huh.
Big deal.
Yeah.
And in high school, I was more of an average student. I knew at the time I was right at the height of the war. So I knew I wasn't going to go, I was going to get in the service. I mean, I figured I'm going to the service. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea of going to college. And if it wasn't for the war, I don't know what I would. My parents could afford to send me to college. I'd had to work my way through. I don't know what I would have done. Mm-hmm. So, in high school, I got reading here and this and that about the Air Force and flying, and I thought, man, I sure would like that. So I went up to Dayton, Ohio, and took the test. That was about 60, 70 miles away. Took a mental and physical test and passed them. And when I graduated from high school, I went in service the very next day. I was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. And they sent me to Biloxi, Mississippi for my, the introduction to the service. Mm-hmm. Now, before then, I had never been more than 80 miles from home. My parents didn't have a car. My aunt had a Model A.
Before you left, though, were your parents pretty worried about you?
They never voiced concern, but I'm sure they were.
Was it a real sad thing when you first shipped off?
Nah, I don't think so. I see, when you expect it that long, it's just something you expect. I signed up. I said I want to get cadet training to be a pilot, and that's what they put me in.
Was it interesting to you to meet people, because not only are you not in your hometown anymore, but now you're meeting guys from all over the country?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that really struck me is, I knew there was a Civil War. And of course, around Cincinnati, you're on the borderline there. There was never a lot of talk about rebels and Yankees. And boy, the first thing you get in service, are you a rebel or are you a Yankee? And I mean, boy, it was a hot topic. And
What did you say?
well, wasn't either one really, because I never classified myself as one or the other. I heard the term, but it wasn't. Nobody talked about it.
Do you think it was the Southerners who were more into that stuff?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they were rabid.
Oh.
Yeah, they were rabid rebels. Yeah.
So do they like to call y'all Yankees a lot?
Well, they would. Yeah, but we got along.
Uh,
So that was a big thing that I saw right away. When you go into, they call it cadet training, pilot cadets. You start out in small planes and build up. First place I went was a college in Galesburg, Illinois, for 4 months. They give you different courses that were pertain to flying and science and things. And everybody got to ride for about 6 hours in a little Piper Cub. I guess just to find out whether you got airsick or how you took the flight. We never got a chance to fly. There was an instructor there. They just took us up. That's all we did. Then you went to primary. I went to primary in Fort Stockton, Texas. And that was a real revelation to me. Of course, Cincinnati's a pretty big town, you know. Mm-hmm. And I had never been to a little town. And you're in the middle of, way out in Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Stockton is just way out west. After primary, you know, you're in a single wing plane, about 165 horsepower. And you're only there 8 weeks, 8 or 9 weeks, and then you go on to what they call basic training. When you first start flying, the big thing is solo. You go up by yourself. Mm-hmm. And that is an experience, although they give you training and they give you enough confidence that you're not afraid, but it's still you're on edge, and then you practice spinning the airplane, and you intentionally spin the plane, and it would spin. You see a picture of a plane spinning around and crashing into the ground. Well, they tell you, you practice it, you intentionally spin the plane, and they have a procedure you use to get out of the spin. And when you do it a few times, it's pretty simple, but when you're by yourself and you're going to have to get out of a spin, you say, boy, I hope it works. So you have a little concern there, you know, it's normal. See, they go to primary basic training, and then they go to advanced training. Advanced training, you either go to twin engines or the single engines. The single engines are training people to go to fighter planes, and the twin engines are ones they train to go into bombers, 2 and 4 engine. So they put me in bombing. And my last advanced place was Pampa, Texas. That's way out in the middle of nowhere too, Pampa. When you graduate, they give you a vacation, and then I went to Shreveport, Louisiana. The air base is still there. At the time, it was the largest runway in the country. Well, they introduced you to, I was a co-pilot. They introduced you to flying the plane. You didn't get to fly it. You weren't taking it off and landing it. There'd be someone else, but you'd be sitting in the right-hand seat.
What bomber were you on then?
That was B-26, a twin engine. Martin Marauder was the name of it. It had a bad reputation when it first came out. They called it a widowmaker. I mean, a lot of them were crashing. They had a lot of test pilots on them, and they just couldn't get them. It took too much to land. They landed at real high speed. Well, they ended up putting 6 more feet on the wings, and that corrected the problem. But it was a good plane, really.
Did you enjoy flying it?
Oh, yeah. Now, we were there about 4 weeks. Went to Atlanta, Georgia, where your crew assembled, the crew. and you got a plane. They assigned you a plane. You have a pilot, a co-pilot, uh, navigator, bombardier, radio man, and then the crew chief. He ran the top turret gun, and then you have a tail gunner. He had usually a little small guy because you couldn't get a big guy in the tail. We took off there. We were there maybe a couple of weeks. They give you your outfits you need, uniforms and that. And we took off. In those days, a B-26, that's a medium bomber, it couldn't fly directly across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe. They had to, and they wouldn't, I guess they didn't want to put them on ships to ship them over. They found out they could they could fly them there, but they had to go what they call the southern route. So we took off from Atlanta. We went to Florida, down to outside of Miami. From there, we went to Puerto Rico. We just made all these stops. From Puerto Rico to British Guiana in South America. From British Guiana to Belém, Brazil. And we left Belém, Brazil to the Ascension Islands, which is right in the middle of the Atlantic between Brazil and Africa. So we landed at Ascension Islands, and of course in those days we had extra gas tanks in the wings in place of bombers.
Well, how was it going to your first time going to another country?
Oh, of course you didn't spend any time. You're at the airfield and whatever go out and eat right on the base. You don't get.
Okay, you didn't go off base.
You don't go anywhere. You could see it from. You could fly over and see these natives down in their huts and that along. We left the Ascension Islands and flew over to South America to, kind of forget the name. And then we went north to Marrakech. And we spent a night there. And we flew from Marrakech into Liverpool, England. And that was a harrowing experience. Going into, they had storms up there, but that's between, England and south of Ireland, and the weather was bad, but they got on the radio and give us directions to the airfield. We landed on one runway, and another plane landed on another one, just missing, It was hectic. And they lost some planes, I understand, flying from Marrakech up to Liverpool because the weather was so bad. And we stayed in Liverpool 2 or 3 weeks. We had on the base most of the time. I guess we went town once or twice. We got to see London. That's about all we had time for. I saw a lot of sights in London.
Who'd you go with? Your crew?
The crew, yeah.
Did y'all go drink?
Well, yeah, you drink. Of course, the beer there is warm, so I didn't like it that much. Then we were assigned to an air base outside of Paris, France. And it was an old German air base, and B-26s were flying out of there on bombing missions into Germany. See, V-Day had been almost a year ago. Our army was pushing. They had crossed the line and they were pushing way back into Germany.
So this is 44, right?
No, that would be January of 45.
Is that when you got to France in 45?
I would say about January.
Okay.
Yeah. Pontoise was the little town name. Got to go into Paris, France a couple of weekends. That was an experience, Young kid, 18 years old. You think now, boy, if a lot of things I saw then, I would take more interest in. Saw Notre Dame and Champs-Élysées and the Eiffel Tower, and then we left there. They went to a base up out in Brussels. Flew some missions out of there.
Now tell me how you felt about the Germans and how you felt about the Japs.
Well, flying missions is kind of impersonal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, infantry guys are fighting real close. I would say it's entirely different. You're cut off from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in that time I was there, there was never any fear. I never was afraid. Although when you fly on a mission, you have, in other words, before a mission started, the crew early in the morning you would go to either a hut or a big tent, and they would tell you where you're going. Briefing, they give everybody in the crew was there. Now, before then, you had no idea where you were going, but they tell you what the weather was going to be like, where you're going, what your bombing mission, what you're going to hit, what kind of bombs you're going to carry, how dangerous it is, and about what altitude you'd fly in depending on the weather, and they brief you on all that. There were some factories, some railroad yards, road intersections, bridges, sometimes personnel barracks, and then you'd have different bombs for different targets. We'd have all the way 1,000-pound bombs, 500 pounds, 250, fragmentation bombs. So it depended on the target what kind of bombs. And there was about 3 missions I recall. We brought the bombs back. The target was overcast, and they didn't want to guess at the target and be hit them. All the bombs fly out in the fields, so they brought them back. You know, you fly a flight of 6 planes. There's one lead plane, and then he has a plane on each wing. And then down below and back, there's another 3 planes. There's one right below the lead plane, and he has a plane on each wing. So there's 6 planes in that flight. Mm-hmm. And as a co-pilot, if our plane was assigned to be on the left wing, this is the lead plane, and we're here, I had to fly it because I could see the plane better through my window. So I do all the flying. Now I wouldn't take off or land, but I did all the flying. And if it was on the other side, the pilot would fly it.
Well, what was the difference between the pilot and the co-pilot? The pilot kind of called the shots then, didn't he?
Well, the pilot took off and landed. And no, he was the key guy, but pilot in my crew, he was an instructor here before. They knew, I think, the flight and the pilot training, they called it classes. I was in class 44G, 1944. G was maybe the day of the month, I guess. And I think it was one of the final classes they had. You know, they knew the war was just about won, so the guys that were instructors, they were getting them overseas now. Now, one thing on some of the flights, we didn't drop all our bombs. I guess I was on 16 flights way into southern Germany. And
did y'all have fighter escorts?
I think we'd had a couple, but we really didn't need them in those days.
Had the German Air Force already kind of been spent by that point?
Pretty much knocked out. There was occasionally somebody would say they saw one, but I never did.
What would have been out at that point?
Well, they had jets. I don't know what they
I heard about the jets.
Yeah. No, they were the jets they were using then, but I never saw any. And I'm not sure, I don't know if our gunners ever fired a shot at any place. But there was a lot of flak. Mm-hmm. I mean, Germans had a lot of practice by that time. And some of the targets had a lot more flak than others. And one time where our plane was hit and the an oil line was hit and it was losing power, but we were able to get back. We couldn't stay in the formation, but we were able to fly it and it got back. Nothing was real dangerous, although there were certain accidents. There were some planes hit. I don't remember being scared. Now, when those anti-aircraft bombs are going off, I'd have some concern there. They say, well, if you see a anti-aircraft bomb, they explode to black smoke. As long as you can see them, you're safe. It's the one that goes off under your plane that you can't see. That's the one to worry about.
Now tell me how cold it was up there.
Well, of course, the higher you get, the colder it gets, and the thinner the air. We never had oxygen. Now, our planes never had oxygen like B-17s or 24s.
Because you were lower.
Yeah, we stayed low. As high as we ever got was maybe 11,000 feet.
Okay.
When you get up to 11 or 12,000 feet, the air is so thin you get tired. Boy, I mean, you're flying a plane, your muscles, you're tired. You know, the controls are mushy.
In what span of time would you say you flew these 16 missions?
Well, it started January through April or May.
This may sound like a silly question, but if I was to ask you back then, why are you killing Germans right now, what would be your answer?
Well, we just thought that's what we're there for.
It's your job.
Yeah, I had no qualms about that. Now, if I had to be in there and shoot one right in the head, I'd have a hard time doing that.
What about the Japanese? They bombed us. Weren't you angry at the Japanese?
Well, you're angry at all of them because you're in war. So there wasn't any thought of any personal thing, any moral. You felt you were on moral grounds. I mean, of course, as a kid, I wasn't thinking about things that I think of now. When you're 18 or 19 years old, you don't think about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, but had you guys heard about what Germany was doing to the Jews?
I don't know. Now, after the war, I went through one of those camps. But no, during the war, I didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
No.
So we didn't really have that knowledge yet.
I don't think I did, no.
What did y'all do when y'all were on base when you weren't flying a mission to kill time?
You wouldn't do a hell of a lot. I mean, there's not much you can do.
Did you get to write your folks and get letters?
Oh, yeah, I wrote them real often. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably got a letter probably every week or other week. My mother wrote, my dad wrote.
What about your siblings?
Once in a while my sister would write, but not often. I had a girlfriend. I thought, well, before I went in service, the one girl I wasn't going what you call real steady, but I went with her more than any other one. For some reason, she wrote me and I wrote her all while I was in service.
Can you remember when Germany surrendered?
Oh yeah, that was a big deal. Well, I guess we celebrated somewhat. We could, hell, at that time we're living in tents. How could you celebrate moving in a tent?
Yeah.
I was in Brussels when the war in Europe ended, and then they transferred us to Munich, Germany. They had a big base in Munich, Germany. For all we knew, we might be assigned to have to go over to Far East. We didn't know, so we kept flying, training, and we had a train in our plane. In those days, you had to get 4 hours of flying in every month to get your pay. When you fly overseas, you get a 50% increase in pay. I think I made $150, and then you get an extra $50. Well, $150 a month in those days is a lot of money. And I sent most of it home. We got to, as part of the training, we got to take trips. We took one trip to London, stayed there about a week. We took another trip to the France and Riviera, stayed there 5 days, and we flew there. Took the plane and got to fly there. That's part of the training. And of course, then when the war in Japan ended, they stopped all our training flights. One of my buddies I went to grade school with, for some reason, I guess I must have written to him or something. He found out where I was, and he came over to see me, and he was in the infantry. He gave me a German pistol. It was a real nice German pistol, you know.
Was this when you were in Germany still?
Yeah, I was in Munich, Germany, and I I brought it home. You know, I got to do it.
Did they have any rules against doing that?
No, not that. I couldn't take a. Of course, when I was flying, I had a 45 Colt,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't give you that. You had to turn that in when the war's over. Oh, I got to carry it after the war for safety purposes, but after I came home, you had to turn all that in. But while I was in Munich, one day I looked outside of our barracks and there was a big stack of rifles. It must have been 8 or 10 feet high. A rifle sitting out on the ground. And I asked somebody, I said, what are they doing here? I said, well, they just confiscated these. I don't know where they got them. And I don't know what they're going to do with this. If you want to, go ahead and take them. So I took 4 rifles out of there and sent them home in a box.
German rifles.
Yeah, one was German. Let's see, one was German, one was from French World War One. I think no, there was 3 rifles. One was an Italian rifle. It was very similar to the one that killed John Kennedy. And I sent them home, and I had ammunition for the German was their answer to our I forget what we
The
call
M1?
it. M1, yeah.
Yeah.
Had a rough stock. It wasn't finished or polished. It must have been towards the end of the war when they were doing it. And I fired it a few times, fired good.
So how much time did you spend in Germany then after the war ended?
I guess I got out of there in probably 46.
Did you get to meet many German civilians or any German troops?
No. They kind of tell you that if you go out at night, they say just be on your guard, you know, because some people, you know, if you had your brother and sister and mate killed, you're gonna be mad. There wasn't a lot of. There was maybe an instance you heard about every now and then, but it wasn't normal. No, I kind of stayed away from them. I had a tour after the war ended. They let us go on a tour. I forget which one. My memory now is so bad. I went to one of the main concentration camps. You know, of course, it had been open or it had been closed for maybe 6 months or so. But you could see the ovens and the ditches that they were putting them in and shooting them, and the rail lines going in, and the bunks that they hold them up in. Oh, it was terrible.
Was it cleaned up by the time you got there?
Well, there wasn't a lot of debris around.
I mean, cleaned up with bodies and stuff, you know.
Oh, there wasn't any bodies, no. But you could see the conditions were terrible.
Now, why do you think it is that they showed that to y'all?
Well, we were interested.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I got to take a trip. I got a chance to go on a trip to Switzerland, see the Matterhorn and Lucerne and different countries there. So that was nice. I'll tell you, a lot of things I got to do in service, as a kid, I didn't think I'd ever be able to do, you know.
Do you feel like it kind of grew you up really quickly?
Oh, yeah. Like I say, I never went anywhere. My parents couldn't afford it. I never went out for a steak dinner in my life until I was in the service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not sure I had it. But to me, a steak was a round steak, you know. After Japan surrendered, we were waiting to go home. We were in this base in Munich, Germany. Well, of course, the one thing we were interested in, how soon do we go get home? In those days, they assigned you points. Depending on how long you were overseas, you got a point. Well, I was only there 5 months, 6 months. So I didn't have hardly any points. So I was one of the last ones to leave, and they weren't flying people out of the Air Force. They weren't flying us home. We went over on a victory ship, you know, about 7,000 tons going up and down.
Uh-huh.
You're sleeping in a bunk. You know, you're an officer, but I think officers and enlisted men slept in the same damn quarters. Second lieutenant in those days wasn't down that much, you know.
How many days was it on this ship coming back?
It seemed like 6 or 7 days at least.
And what do you remember
Yeah,
how it was, doing anything?
I know I didn't play cards. I know there's some real card sharks. You can see some card games going. They were sharpies, I tell you. You better know what you were doing. They were shooting crap, and mostly, I think. I played a little bridge over in Germany. We had a officers club. We had 8 great meals. We got service like, you know, we were waited on.
Did you get seasick?
Not bad, no. A little bit, just a little.
Well, how'd you end up getting back home?
Well, you always come home on a train. We landed in New York, and we got to stay a few days there. Went to some shows. I think I saw Frank Sinatra. Went to one of the clubs. We weren't there much longer.
Did you go to the clubs with anybody you knew, or just by yourself?
No, I was with a couple of buddies you went home with, you know, found them on the boat. So we went out together. When I got back to the States, I didn't have a car. And I learned to drive. Of course, as an officer, we had access to Jeeps. And taught myself to drive a Jeep. And you know, they're stick shift, but nevertheless, you jump it a few times. And so I got out of service. They give you a license. When you get out, they said, well, I've had 700 hours in the air flying, I guess. So that qualified me for a commercial pilot's license. So I got a card that says you're a commercial pilot. And I have the card as a commercial pilot, but I didn't have a driver's license for a car. And I didn't have one for, at least a year or 2 years after I got it. I couldn't afford it. Finally, I bought a new a Dodge, a 48 Dodge, fluid drive. Remember that, my first car. When I came home, I went out to the local airport. It's the Cincinnati airport now. At that time, it hadn't been the Cincinnati airport. It was a practice field for the Air Force. And I went out there and rented a small Piper Cub and took my buddies up for a ride. Of course, I had my license. I was allowed to fly then. And I went up about 3 times. But, you know, not a big deal.
Do you remember anything being different when you came back home, or maybe the way people treated you or anything?
No, of course they treat you great. Coming back on World War II, no, they treat you great.
So everybody around you, or a lot of people around you, kind of knew that you had been in the war.
Yeah, but of course there's a lot of other people were in the war. You weren't anything totally exceptional, you know. Of course, I'm living a much better life. You know, I've been to some of the greatest places all over the world.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling very fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters, they never went to college. They never got to travel. My parents, I think they went to Florida once. That's all they ever did. I was debating what to do. And I pretty much figured I'm going to go to college because I knew about the GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
So I had several months before school started. And I didn't get a job. I thought, what the hell? They had a deal. When you got out of service, you get $20 a week for 52 weeks. And they called that the 5220 Club. You ever hear of it? 5220 Club. Well, For 52 weeks, you can go downtown at the wherever you get $20. Well, I had my buddies that got out of service. They were in the club too. So we didn't know what to do with ourselves, so we started playing golf. We didn't have any clubs, and we rousted up some spare clubs somewhere. So I started playing golf.
Did they let you keep your fatigues and all that?
Yeah, I think we kept some of. Yeah, I kept my uniform, but eventually threw that away. What the heck? I went to Xavier University. It's a Jesuit college. It wasn't necessarily had to be a Catholic college. It's just one. It had that or it's University of Cincinnati. Well, I picked Xavier. I was kind of partial to it, and I lived at home and went to school. And at first I didn't have a car. I had to take a streetcar and a bus. And occasionally one of my buddies, I'd hook a ride with them. Well, later on, when I bought my car, I guess I went through school about 3 years. And I really, in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be an engineer, but I didn't have any high school training of any kind that qualified me. I would have to take all these courses ahead of time. So I took a business course, accounting. I did it. I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't my favorite. So I went through college, got through fine. They paid you, as I recall, they give us so much a month. I don't remember what it is now. Paid for all our books, paid the tuition. Yeah, and I went to work with the Kroger Company. That's food stores. You familiar with them?
Yes.
Are you? Well, they have a program for college students, and they paid me $55 a week. And I was married. Because I was married, I got an extra $5, so we made $55 a week.
Well, hang on, back up. How'd you meet your wife?
Well, I had been going with this girl before I went in service, wrote letters to her all the while. And when I got out of service, I went out with her. I thought, well, this is my girlfriend, we had no aspirations of marriage or anything like that, but she's a girl I was attracted to her. And one day, two of my buddies, we decided to go out to a swimming pool, not a big deal, one of the neighborhoods. And there was two girls sitting there. And naturally, it wasn't crowded or anything, not many people, so we walked up, introduced ourselves, and that's where I met my wife. So I got her name and address and phone number, of course. She was very attractive, particularly in a bathing suit.
Yeah.
And I started going with her, not real often. I didn't have a car then.
How old were you and how old was she?
Well, I went in at 18. I was 24, 23.
And how old was she?
She was a year younger than me. And it so happened she lived a mile away from where I did. And I was able to walk up to her house, some evening. I didn't need a car. The funny thing is, I started going with her, the one I met at the swimming pool that I married. I started going with her fairly regular. And I quit going with the other girl. Known her for 6 years. And I never called her or anything. She didn't call me. That was it.
And so how long did you guys go steady before y'all got married?
Oh, year and a half.
When you actually got ready to tie the knot, how did that go with your wife?
Oh, fine, yeah. I think she expected a ring, And her family had 7 children. My family had 4. They were about the same fixed income as we were. They weren't rich, but they weren't poor.
And what were you and your wife's aspirations when y'all got married?
Well, of course, I was with Kroger and I wanted to at least get somewhere. Our wedding, our wedding reception was in her parents' backyard. We had a keg of beer, and of course, all the women brought the food. That was our wedding party. My son up in Dallas, his son, my grandson, they just had a wedding in Dallas. It had to cost a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Here I had one big keg of beer in the backyard.
How many kids did you raise again?
I raised four.
What did you do most of your career?
I was merchandising. In other words, I started out as a trainee. They make you run a store. You have to start working in a store so you know what it's like. Now, this is in 1949. Now, stores then, a supermarket had like 2 registers. And I eventually ran a small store, and then I ran a bigger store. I think it had 6 registers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a good sized store in those days. But and then I got a chance Kroger sent me to Michigan State to take a special course, which cost him, I was up there a year, and that cost him some money. I came back, went in the office, and then I got promoted to West Virginia. They said, well, I wanted to be a merchandiser, or at least that was one of the steps you take would have been a good step. And the merchandiser down there was getting old, and they said, we don't expect this guy to live much longer. We want you to go down there and back him up, and you'll take over. Well, I went down there to Charleston, West Virginia. It was my first, it was a move out of town. The guy, he was a grand old guy. I loved working for him, but his health kept hanging on. He was good. And I told the boss, I said, hey, I was sent here to back this guy up, and I don't want his job. I don't want to take it from him, but he should be staying here as long as he wants. But tell the company to get me out of here. So he said, okay. Then finally I got out and they sent me up to Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was there 5 years, and then I came down to Houston. I was in Houston ever since.
So you're pretty proud of your children?
Oh yeah, my son, of course, when he was in high school, I got him a job on a beer truck. The beer driver, he just drove the truck and he'd have to haul the beer in.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 boys, and both of them during the summer, I got them a job on beer trucks, because in my job, selling beer in the stores was under my department. So these guys wanted to please me. They give my kids a job.
Yeah.
So they did that. But when they got out of college, they got their jobs on their own. And my boy in Dallas has really done something. He worked his way up to be president of his company. In the grocery business, they don't pay a lot of money. I had they consider a pretty good job, but still, $100,000 was wow. And I never made $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
But $100,000 is nothing nowadays. Hell, I got a granddaughter making over that. She just got an ordinary job.
Yeah.
And luckily, I made some investments, and they were pretty good. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot to invest. Everything was on my own, but I was pretty lucky, and so rent here is kind of high, but I don't have any other expenses, and I can handle that.
Yeah.
I make more money now than I did when I was working because I saved.
So how's retirement?
Well, right now retirement's not good. I don't feel good. I've fallen probably 4 times here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing the best I can to avoid doing it, and yet I fall. I was healthy as anything up until about 90 years old. And starting 90, boy, I started going downhill. My eyes got bad. I have macular degeneration. I get these shots in my eyes. Physically, I've never had a broken bone in my life. Now, my balance is terrible. I gotta have that walker. And
But you still enjoy life though.
well, the kids, they think you have it easy here, and you do. But I keep thinking back to the way it was. You know, I can't get used to that. I can't get used to not being able to walk around. Because when we moved in here, my wife and I, we got flooded out. Both of our cars at home. We got out here and we wouldn't have a car for several months. I said, you know, we kept asking our daughter to take us to the store and this and that. I said, I'm gonna get a car. I gotta have a car. So I went out and bought a car, a new car. So I was driving and my wife wouldn't drive. She saw Mason drive. She says, I'm not gonna drive on that. But we drove around to church and to the store and prescriptions and everything. It worked out good. And finally my eyes started getting bad and I was afraid of getting sued sometime because of an accident.
Right.
And
is it hard being old, would you say? Being old is difficult?
it's a pain in the ass to me. Some people's, you know, I'm going to be 100, and I can tell you, I don't care if I get to be. I'd be happy if I don't get there.
Okay.
That's a terrible thing to say.
Why?
Because I keep telling you, I don't feel like I used to feel. I can't do anything. My kids have my boy has a place in Montana, and my daughter has one, the same one. I've been up there many times visiting them, but I love it. They have a golf course there and everything. I play golf. Well, I was doing so many things. My wife and we traveled. I traveled back to Germany and England and that, and but I can't do any of that now. I can't even fly. The last time I flew, I had to be with my daughter to read the signs, and you had to get in a wheelchair, somebody would run you around.
Yeah.
They're all going to Escondido this weekend. Why don't you go with us? Well, I gotta have a bathroom with bars on it. I have prescriptions, salves. I got all this stuff. It's easier to sit here and take it easy, but it's no fun. I play poker here, participate in just a few things. I can't participate in a lot of stuff. I was playing bridge and I can't see well enough to play now. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating if you're a capable man your whole life.
Yeah.
And now you hit something and you get bruised up and you just.
I was so fortunate. Like I don't think I even, like I said, I never broke a bone in my life.
Do you have any ambitions, or you feel like you've already accomplished everything in your life that you've wanted to?
Well, I couldn't accomplish anything more than just stay. I'm trying to stay alive now, and the good Lord takes me. I'll be good.
Right.
I'm ready to go.
Right.
Now, a lot of people, they get my age, they love to be 100. And my healthcare worker has a patient. She knows a girl that's 105, was in service, and can walk without a walker. There's people who play golf yet that are my age, 99. Not many, but there's a few scattered around this world.
You said you're ready to go, but your children wouldn't want to see you go.
No, they don't want me to. They say they enjoy coming over here, but man, my daughter, who you met here, she just does everything for me. If I say I want something, the next day I got it.
Yeah. Do you still miss your wife a lot?
Well, yeah, hell, she's a good cook. But my daughter was here. She's a good cook. I go over to her house about once a week, and man, I just have good food.
After your wife passed, was it pretty difficult at first?
Well, yeah, at first it's hard to get used to it. You know, I got 2 rooms, I'm all by myself. She'd like coffee in the morning. I don't even drink coffee in the morning now.
Does it still feel not normal to have her not with you?
Well, I'm getting used to it, I guess. Yeah. I was thinking back all the things she did that at the time I didn't know she did as much as she really did. Every time we moved, I get transferred, she had more work on her shoulders than I had.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just went to a different office.
Mm-hmm.
She had to take care of the kids' clothes. I mean, she for 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now she was always a home mother, a homemaker. Luckily, she was. That's why we never had a lot of money. Once the kids got out of college, it's amazing how much money I saved.
Yeah. So this video, hopefully a handful of people will watch it.
I don't know if that they're interested, but who knows? Well, I think it'd be great to know what times are like, because right now this is the worst of times. I can't imagine anything worse than what we're going through now. Of course, I don't get around. All I know what's on the news, and when they tell me that 50% of the people live from paycheck to paycheck, that's hard to understand. My wife and my parents grew up always paying for everything. We paid cash for everything except our house. Never. That's all we if we couldn't afford it, we didn't get it. And nowadays, kids, when I see them, if I find out one of my kids or grandkids have a credit card with balance on it, I go through the roof.
Yeah.
I go through the roof.
Yeah.
How anybody pay 20% interest? Well, they don't remember World War II and tough times. I mean, when I think back to the tough times, I always remember the good things. I don't remember the bad things,
Really?
just the good things.
How would you, if you were to sum up your life, what would you say, what kind of life have you lived?
Well, I've been very fortunate. Been extremely fortunate. And there's so many things that happened to me that I really didn't deserve. It just happened, Of course, you say, well, you earned some of them, yeah, but I was fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit lucky, maybe I worked too, but I'd sum it up, I've had a good life.